So my name's Dan. I'm a recovered drug addict. First of all, I want to say thanks for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be in a position where I can, come and try and spread the message of recovery as best I can, as someone did it to me. So I want to start off by reading the first couple of pages of More About Alcoholism, which is chapter 3 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterised by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently maybe, has to be smashed. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralisation. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. We are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there has been brief recovery, followed always by a still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science may one day accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. So, that's pretty much my story, It's I won't go into my childhood or anything like that because it's irrelevant to what I suffer with, I think, personally. I started drinking and using at quite an early age. I was about 12. When I first got drunk off alcohol, enjoyed the effects of it, wanted another drink, plain and simple. I enjoyed the effects it had on me. Going through school, I started socialising with people. I started hanging around with some older people that had a bit of hash on the scene. I started smoking that. I was intrigued and I wanted some. Again, I enjoyed the effect of it. Smoking that or drinking never really had serious consequences. I might have woke up in the morning with a hangover. I might have been sick all over myself and made a fool of myself, but that was pretty much it, So I did that for quite a few years and enjoying life and doing whatever. And getting a little bit older, I got into my career that I always wanted to be as an electrician. Managed to get a good job with a good company, and so I was doing that. Again, I was going out on a Saturday night, Friday night, still enjoying it, having the time of my life, really. Found my, back then to be my wife. And by this point, cocaine, pills, speed was on the scene quite regularly. To the point where it was like every time I went out for a drink, and even then, I don't know if it had a grip on me then, but it was, I still enjoyed it. I got in trouble with the law and stuff like that, but even then I couldn't see a serious problem. I could put it down through the week and pick it up when I wanted to. I still had a little bit of choice. So I met my girlfriend then. She knew that I took drugs, and she said to me straight away, she says, look, if we're going to stay together, you got to knock it on the head. Which I didn't, and I still had a choice back then. I chose to. I enjoyed it. Why should I give it up? Selfish. But I was able to cover it up, I was able to lie. I got my friends to cover it up for me all the time, and looking back, even when she's looking back, she knows she was a bit naive to the fact, I was up till 10 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't do that with just alcohol. So I did well in work. I was able to manage work at the time, and manage the rest of my life pretty well. I got promoted in work. I had a good job. Getting older and older, I managed to buy a house with my fiance. I had a well paid job, nice car. And cocaine specifically started to get hold of me. I remember sort of taking it midweek, carrying on through the night and going to work and still being on it. So maybe then, that was probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And that was, slowly but surely it was getting progressive. And my using was getting more. Took more drugs. I won't go into what I did on my sprees because I think that's irrelevant. Everyone's got their own story, but it started to be, my consequences started building up. Work started getting suspicious. I started telling a hell of a lot more lies. I started getting into money problem. I started selling drugs. I started getting big lumps of gear and having a lot of that around me. And I wasn't actually selling that much. I was using a hell of a lot more than I was selling. So I was getting into big debt with some dangerous people that were coming to my house, knocking on the door, turning up at work. And so at that point, if I was a normal user, I'd look at my situation, I'd go, I've got to pack this in. Any normal person would be able to just stop or moderate and get themselves in a position where they're not doing that stuff. But I wasn't. I still thought I had control over it. My friends that used pretty heavily as well, they were saying to me, Dan, you've got to rein it in a bit. It's getting a bit silly now. But I was still saying, no, it's cool, I've got this. And slowly but surely, then that was taking me on my own. And I was using on my own, sitting in lay-bys and hiding it from the missus. And my health started to deteriorate quite rapidly. I wasn't eating. By this point, I was using every day, throughout the night, weeks at a time. When my body couldn't take any more, I'd say to myself, right, this is it. This is it. The last time I'll do it. Probably the next day I'll get up and I'll go and do it again. And then starts another spree. So probably 2 years ago, I can't remember the day, but I'd been out for a 4-day binge, and it was unusual because I'd actually gone back with some friends, and my using, like I say, I was on my own all the time, hiding it. But so I was drinking, taking a lot of gear, and I remember the morning that I was going to go home, and I've been smoking weed as well. I didn't feel right, and got in the car. I managed to get myself home, and I sat there all day long. And long story short, my missus came home from work at about 9 o'clock at night. I was talking to her on the dining room table, and the next thing I know, I was on the sofa, and I had paramedics in the house, I had police, and I'd had a seizure right in front of her eyes, and I'd put her through that. She didn't know that I was on it for that long. She didn't know the reason why. I was quite violent to her coming out of the seizure, and I was hospitalised. It was pretty bad. I could have died, and so I got signed off work for 4 weeks. for the whole 4 weeks, I was flat out on the gear again. You know, after saying to myself, and really meaning it this time, it wasn't, you know, I've woken up with a hangover, I'm not going to do it again, knowing full well that I was going to go and use again. I fucking meant it. And yeah, the thing that was going to kill me, I went and did it again, quite badly, again and again and again. And you know, that wasn't the only time. There were so many little things I used to say, look, fucking hell, I can't do this again. My body can't take much more of it. I was a shadow of a man that I am now because of, you know, the weight dropped off me. I couldn't eat. I was very poorly, and yeah, I think it'd be all right to just go and have one line again. Time and time again, I'd forget. You know, the book mentions it. You know, I suffer with a mental inconsistency, a peculiar mental twist. You know, I could be having the best day going, yet I'll decide to go and do that again. I can't remember what happens when I pick up that first one, and usually when I pick up that first one, I pull my life down in front of me. So, work's obviously wondering why I've had the seizure. So I've gone back to work on light duties, and they're sort of watching me, and at this point I'm using in the toilets at work, I'm not turning into work, I'm having days off, I'm coming in late, I can't sit there talk to people because I'm constantly in psychosis, paranoid as anything because I've just had another line. Someone heard me in the toilet sniffing a line in the head office, and I got pulled in, and it was my boss, my line manager, and he basically just says, look, we've got reasons to believe you've been taking drugs at work, it's gross misconduct, so we're going to take you for a drug test. And I said, yeah, that's all right, yeah. I thought I'd be able to, you know, the illusion that I'd be able to hide it was crazy because it was the next day. So I said to myself, right, that's it, I won't do any more today. Knowing full well I had a drug test in the morning, first thing. Come 1 o'clock in the morning, I've just fucking had my last line. You know, I carried on regardless. So the spree had me in its grip. I had fucking no control over it. Little did I know then, I couldn't control it. I was powerless, and so I got taken to a clinic to get a drug test, and I was suspended then for another week. The results came back, and it was clear as day on the sheet of paper, positive. You know, it was something silly, 10 times the limit or whatever. So yeah, again, I said, right, it's all going to come out now. My missus is going to know, my family's going to know. This is it. I am not doing it again. And that lasted probably about 4 days maximum. And I was able to get, I'm an electrician, so there's a lot of work about. I started being self-employed. I got a job straight away. I landed on my feet, and so yeah, it lasted a little bit longer. I said to myself, look, I need to hold down the job, start paying back some debt that I owe, and promise my missus that this is it now. You know, she knows. If she knows, I'm able to be honest with her and say, right, I've had a problem, and that's it. Yeah, the inevitable happened. I relapsed again, and yeah, it was just constant, you know, promises. I managed to persuade her to hide it from my family because I said, look, I'll be able to sort it. You know, I'll be able to regain control, like it says in that, this first bit, times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, so another relapse, and it was just a constant cycle for a couple of years, and yeah, it got to the point where my missus just had enough, you know, all the lies, the deceit, I was sending her crazy. Yeah, it was just horrendous, you know, for me, but for her, for the people that was surrounding me, it was just horrendous. And one evening she came home and she found gear in my pocket again. She rang my mum, and they put me into a rehab the very next day, and you know, I thought, right, this is it. You know, I was forever Googling, researching treatment centres that maybe I no one else could find out if I go there, you know, undercover. It was all out in the open, so I was like, right, I can get the help I need. So I went to Luton and I was there for 30 days, and it was 30 days, man, I started feeling brilliant. You know, I hadn't been that clean for a long time. Started to look a bit better, started to feel a hell of a lot better. I thought I knew what I suffered with. I really did. You know, it was a 12-step treatment centre, and I was on board. I was doing all the step work, paperwork, and everything else. I didn't pick up the big book. I didn't go into the big book. And I came out. You know, my family come and picked me up, and they were happy because it weren't going to happen again. And I genuinely thought it wasn't going to happen again. The next day, I went and picked up an eighth of cocaine, and I was like, how the fuck did that happen? And I just learned I couldn't do it. I just learned I've got no control. Yeah, I went and did it again. You know, mental twist, bosh, you'll be all right. You'll be able to handle it. No one will find out. Yeah, crazy, man. I got kicked out. You know, finally she kicked me out, and bags were packed. I was back at my mum's, and they blatantly said to me, look, Dan, if you carry this on, you're going to be out on the street. You know, we can't put up with this. Bearing in mind they've just paid $6,500 or whatever it was to put me in a treatment centre. They've just taken on all my debt that I said I'll repay. Thousands and thousands. And I said, right, well, that's it. I can't go on the street, you know. I can't get kicked out. So it was like, right, that's it. I'm hitting the meetings. I'm hitting Cocaine Anonymous meetings. Sitting with other addicts. I'm talking about how well I'm feeling because I hadn't used. I'm telling other newcomers, you know, this is what you do. Little did I know, I didn't know what I was doing myself. Mm-hmm. But back then I thought I was spreading the word of recovery. And I was leaving meetings and I was going and using. It was crazy, you know. I got sponsored by someone else, and they started taking me through the work, and I still didn't really understand. You know, it was like, how can I get better from something I don't really understand what I suffer with? So I was going through the work, got to step 4, and I sat on it for a little while, and I met the guy who is now my sponsor, and he asked me, how are you doing, Dan? I'm about 2 weeks clean, step 4, not done anything. I'm feeling great. I've been used for a while. People are trusting me again. He says, Dan, you're going to relapse. You know, and I thought, no, I'm not. A couple of days later, it happened again. And I phoned him up. I said, how did you know that was going to happen? He said, because it happened to me. And it was his experience as well. And I asked him to be my sponsor straight away because I'd relate to his experience. He seemed like he knew what he was talking about. You know, he carried it himself in a way that you could tell he was a recovered member. And he held his hand out, you know. Time and time again, he saw me relapsing, and he wasn't saying to me, look, you don't want it enough, or, you know, you're not doing enough. It's like, it's cool, it happens. So he sat me down and we started going through chapter 3 more about alcoholism, and in this chapter it describes the mental inconsistencies. You know, there's a few stories in there that straight away sprung out to me that I was like, fucking hell, that's me. You know, the jaywalker, for instance. That was my life, you know, through active addiction, smashing myself to pieces, swearing off, maybe using strategies, and going to do it again. You know, the strategies never worked. My strategies were something I was putting in place where it was going to fail me again and again and again. So what did I do about it? I listened. You know, I listened to clear-cut directions from my sponsor, which was straight from the book. You know, the 12 steps. We went through it. You know, I was desperate. I think it says about it in here, I showed desperation of a drowning man. I was dying. And went through the steps vigorously and honestly. I did everything that he told me to do. And it was all right for a time. I was told, go and help others. You know, I got to step 12, go and help others. In my head, I was going to go and help others, and in return, I wasn't going to relapse. You know, I was using it as another strategy. And inevitably, a little while on, I did. I went and relapsed. I relapsed, and it got to the point where I had the best Christmas ever. You know, I spent the time with my family, and I was present, and it was Christmas just gone. Boxing Day came around, and I found myself stood in my kitchen again, in psychosis, sniffing cocaine on my own, and I thought, how the fuck have I got here again? You know, it was like, you know, it wasn't my choice. I had no choice in the matter, and I'm doing it again. That broke me. It completely, I don't know what happened then, but maybe that was my spiritual awakening, which I thought I'd already had. You know, I was beaten into a state of, I was cornered, completely cornered at last, and I needed that. I needed that experience. From that day on, I was different. You know, I thought I was recovered up until that point. No, looking back, I was still using strategies. Yeah, that was my awakening, and from this day, you know, I've changed to a point where I just want to go and help people. You know, that's my life. You know, I get so much out of going and working with another drug addict. You know, sitting down face to face, going through the steps and seeing their eyes light up. You know, it's like someone did that for me so freely, and you know, I get so much out of it. And as a result of that, I've not relapsed, but you know, I describe myself as a recovered member of Cocaine Anonymous purely for the fact I haven't relapsed for a while, and I haven't put any strategies in place. So if you're new, welcome. Get yourself a big book. You know, if you want recovery, you can't go any further without having a big book, and find yourself a sponsor that works from the big book.
Where do you get a big book from?
I'll leave it here. I'll leave it there. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Dan.